So Evie and I are going to teach a little bit about getting used to injections and being comfortable with injections. And of course injections can be intravenous, they can be subcut, they can be intramuscular, and again sometimes it's unavoidable, there's nothing we can do, the dog has to have it done, in which case there are things that we can do to make it better for them, and sometimes we have time to accustom them to it, and sometimes we sort of train a little bit on the fly. So let's think about, first of all, a subcutaneous injection. Often that involves us reaching over the dog's head, which can be a little bit uncomfortable for them. So we want to accustom them to that. You can teach, you reach in, you touch, yes, and you feed. So you want the dog to get used to being touched. Yes, and feed. So whether or not this is on the fly, this is just a nice way of building the behavior. Yes, and feed. And then you can get the dog accustomed to poking in that little subcut space, yes, and feed. So that's something you can teach pre-visit if you want to. You can build up to that, I'm using just a blunt 1 ml syringe here, but you then can make it that little bit more realistic if you want to by using something a touch sharper. So I've got a blunted cocktail stick here, and we just want to have them getting used to that idea that sometimes it feels a little different. Yes, good. So we're never going to shove this into their skin, but we want them to just learn about the different sensations. Yes, good girl. Because it's not always blunt, as we know, and we always want to use a sharp needle. Yes, good job. Good job. So we're just getting them used to different sensations and being handled and having their heads reached over and so forth. So that's really important. If you have a dog who has had no training and is a little bit uncomfortable but is still able to eat and interact, you can simply use a distraction with some really delicious food. But again, we never want to use food coercively. So we give them fabulous food, they're dogs, they want it, they dive in, and then we sort of grab and stab. Because that can really break trust, and it can mean that we get away with it one time but we won't get away with it another time, and we can poison the relationship with food and with everybody in the room. So we've got to have a dog who's willing to eat and is comfortable, and it's not a coercive thing. So we would then give them the delicious thing, and while they're busy and engaged, we just reach over and we give that injection, or we do that dunk into the muscle, wherever it is that you need to be while they're busy. So pick your patient, make sure they're comfortable to eat and be handled, and make sure that they are happily engaged and calmly engaged in the food, and that you can see them. You want to be able to watch and respond to their body language the whole time, and if they stop eating or they look concerned, we back away immediately and we give them space. We don't want food to be coercive. You can also accustom your dogs to intramuscular injections, and again, we can't really simulate the actual injection, and under no circumstances should we be using actual injections for training. I get asked this a lot by trainers, can I give an actual injection for the purposes of training? No, that is not ethical, but we can accustom them to lots of different sensations. So for an intramuscular injection, for example, we might expect that the dog needs a little restraint. So we might, yes, get them used to that type of being held. So again, just gentle restraint. Yes, good. Gentle restraint. Poke the muscle. Yes, good. Super, super nice. And then we might poke the muscle with something sharper. Yes, good job. Good job. So we want to think about different areas where we might give intramuscular injections. So it could be the epaxials, it could be these neck muscles, it could be our quads. So it really depends. We want to prepare wherever we think we're going to be using. Then we also might think about intravenous. So again, we might start at the shoulder, slide down. Yes, just to get them used to that idea that they're going to be touched and held behind their elbow. Start here, slide. Yes, good girl. Think about the type of restraint they might need. Yes. So this is our pre-training, but again, we can also sort of do this on the fly a little bit, just to kind of get them used to, oh, that's what you're going to be doing. Yes, good girl. Good girl. And again, if we have to do an IV injection and we have an animal that can and will and happily eat, we can get them engaged in something like this Kong object, or the chase and chomp, and we might give that to them over here, quietly borrow that leg, raise the vein, get your injection, da, 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 and we're done. Again, we want to make sure we've got a dog who's happily engaged in that food and that's relaxed and not worried about being touched and eating at the same time. And then if you want to have it a little bit more consensual, sit my darling, sit. You can have a dog who offers paws, foot or paw, whichever, and then you teach them about, you know, I raise it, I pinch it, you hold, good girl. And so that's a no restraint technique, but again, you would want to have a dog who is pretty confident and a lot of training in behind that. So, you know, really, first of all, we want to think, can the dog be trained in advance? Gorgeous. But in reality, that doesn't often happen. So you might want to do a bit of on-the-fly training where either you're chatting to the owners, pinching, releasing and feeding, or you're sliding your arm down, releasing and feeding, or you're poking the muscle, releasing and feeding, so that the dog's gently acclimatizing to that. And then that may be enough to get you through what you need to get done in that moment. Or it may be that you feed and inject at the same time. And the last thing we want to do is lie to our dogs or trick them or coerce them, because whilst we might get away with that procedure one time, we are not going to get away with it in the future.